Things are heating up between the Minnesota Wild and Brock Boeser as a recent report has revealed that things are everything but done in this signing and free agency. We're going to be breaking that down, as well as what Bill Guerin had to say in recent comments about Marco Rossi, and things may be a lot different than we last heard on that instance. We're going to be breaking it all down here in this video, ladies and gentlemen. And very quickly, before we do jump into this video, we got a lot of stuff coming. It is draft week, free agency week. We have a lot of stuff coming. You won't want to miss it. Right here, you're going to get all your Minnesota Wild news. And we also noticed that 96% of you guys watching right now are actually not subscribed to the channel. So if you're looking for a spot for all of your Minnesota Wild news, you're in the right spot. Hit the sub button. Join us here on the channel. But let's jump straight into this, because things are getting very, very crazy on the front of Brock Boeser, on the front of this team. What's going to happen in free agency now that the Minnesota Wild have some newly found cap after getting rid of the Zach Parise and Ryan Suter contracts that were putting us in a very bad spot for quite some time. And this is what Nick Kypreos had to say on Brock Boeser. We assume he is coming to a real close to terms with the Minnesota Wild, and that comes from Leafs Morning Take on June 20th, so a couple days ago. But now that this is getting here, we're starting to see more and more about this, and more stuff keeps on coming out between the two parties, between the Minnesota Wild and between Brock Boeser. And we now have another report coming out from Mark D'Amico today. As Boeser hits free agency, the Bruins, along with the Wild, Canadiens, Kings, Red Wings, and Mammoth, are expected the main teams in the running for his services. Now, we can obviously say that Brock Boeser, the best team right here, right now, would be the Minnesota Wild. I think they're the team that's closest to the playoffs. You can argue them with the Kings. Not just being close, but also being there, being in that position that they're able to win, and just need that extra step. And he would fill that gap that the Minnesota Wild have desperately needed for the past few years. Now, Brock Boeser's been someone the Minnesota Wild have been linked to for quite some time now, and I feel like we know what we're getting at this point. And it's fair to say that the Brock Boeser that we saw a couple years ago seems to be coming back. Now, Brock Boeser really has not been a player who's been able to stay healthy throughout his career. We saw early in his career, as you see there, 62 games through 56 for first 4 years. Now, 71, 74, 81, 75 the last four. Been healthy and relatively been more successful over these past few seasons, and 73 points the season before last year, 50 points. He is still someone that, if given in the right position, of course, the Vancouver Canucks have just not been a team that you really want to play for the past few seasons. You put him on a line with anybody in this Minnesota Wild team, he would immediately be that secondary goal scorer for this team, really in any given scenario. And you have Matt Boldy, you have your Kirill Kaprizov, you have those guys on offense that have been able to generate the offense and the goal scoring in the past few seasons. However, apart from that, and after that, there really hasn't been much. You know, Marco Rossi this year, that was one that really kind of was a nice change to see, but nobody stayed healthy, and we really didn't get to see the full aspect of the Minnesota Wild. So when you do go out and, kind of put him in comparison to the lines that we're looking at here, it makes a lot of sense that he could fit in with a Marcus Foligno, or Marco Rossi, of course, if he stays. Matt Zuccarello, depending on what happens. And he is a right winger. We're currently, in a good spot on the right wing with Boldy and Zuccarello. You can move Zuccarello to the left, move Foligno down. It gives you an opening there. There's a lot of moves that could be made internally without actually having to get rid of anybody for Brock Boeser, on this team to be able to fit in well, get back in that goal scoring, and really be able to be with whoever he needs to be. The Wild have the opportunity to do that. And of course, we do have some young guys coming up, Liam Ogren, a few other young players that may also get into this lineup. We still don't really know yet. Daniil Yurov going to be here, but I think it's fair to say Ogren, Yurov, maybe a few others, younger players may make an appearance here next year, but at least those two right now. Putting them on the line with Brock Boeser would seriously boost any bit of capabilities they will have because of Brock Boeser's, career experiences. Now, one thing, as you probably saw a minute ago, he's an expensive player. There's no doubt about that. 6 years by 8.5 is his projection here on AFP Analytics, and that's not a cheap price to give someone who would be your second-line right winger behind Kirill Kaprizov. You have Matt Boldy there on the top line as well. Matt Boldy, luckily, he's on a good contract. I think this also has a big impact on what will happen with Marco Rossi. And that's what we're going to jump into here in a moment. But when we do go take a look at it, the Wild don't have a lot of cap space. They have $15 million. Now, that is a good amount. That is, of course, a good amount, one that you would love to have. But when you compare a Brock Boeser, an $8 million deal, 8.5, you get a Marco Rossi. He wants above $7 million. Those two right there take up that entire cap space and allow the Wild to do nothing else that they really want to, which is a bit of a concerning point. So let me know what you think about Brock Brock Boeser. I think he's a player that we would love to see in this uniform. He's a player that has really been, very solid over the past few seasons, and I think that he's one that would really fit this Minnesota Wild team. And looking at his stats, of course, 50 points, 75 games. He's been someone that I think has been fairly consistent. 18 minutes time on ice average last year, and only 28 years old. Still pretty good on defense. He fits the bill really well. So let me know what you think about that. But we got to jump into our next topic here. This is something that a lot of people have been talking about lately. We haven't as much as of late. Rumors have kind of slowed down, but we're still seeing so much stuff about Marco Rossi, mainly with the Vancouver Canucks. So when we do go take a look at our new report here, what we have, this one here comes out from Bill Guerin himself, actually. He says the narrative out there that is we are dying to trade him, that is not the case at all. And this, of course, relates to Marco Rossi, that the Wild are seemingly looking to trade him guaranteed. Now, apparently what Bill Guerin is saying is that this is not the case. We're not necessarily dying to trade him. Going back from what we've been able to see the past few seasons, the past few weeks and months, they have really been pretty adamant about him not going to be on this team next year. Of course, they haven't necessarily said, yes, we're going to be rid of him, but all signs from just about everybody, Michael Russo, Joe Smith, have been pointing to him being traded because of the uncertainty that Bill Guerin has in him for a contract that will be much higher in comparison to Matt Boldy's contract. It's something that you really can't afford to give him, especially with how much cap the Wild are getting. This is going to be something that they want to be able to spend very important on. If Marco Rossi's not their guy, they're not going to make it happen. And we saw how good he could be. We saw how good last year he was. One of the only two to play 82 games, 60 points. Now in the playoffs, he definitely took a big step back. Not on his choice, of course. He wanted to be up there. He wanted to see the ice more. But Bill Guerin simply, just didn't trust him when everybody came back healthy. About 24 goals, 36 points, 18 minutes time on ice. Once again, playing the same minutes as Brock Boeser. He's been a player that really has shown that he can be at that point, just not fully to an extent yet. And we do have another quote here coming out from Bill Guerin. Said, here's the thing. We're not in a rebuild, so we don't want things that are going to help us in 5 years down the line. We want to win now. We want to compete now, and Marco helps us do that. Marco is a really good player. He's coming off a great year. He's young. He's a center. He's a lot of value to what he brings. Now, once again, kind of going back on what Bill Guerin had to say the past, few times we've spoken about him, he hasn't necessarily said, yes, we want to trade Marco Rossi. We want to get rid of him. He's been here saying that, there's uncertainty. He don't know yet, but he would like to come back. But the way that people are making this seem is just that it's almost a guaranteed trade. But Bill Guerin now kind of make a lot of people come back here on their mind and see what things are going to happen, where everything's going to come from, because I'd still love to see Marco Rossi on this team. I know a lot of you guys would love to see Marco Rossi on this team. But the way that things are playing out now, I think we're at a spot where we will really never know until a move actually happens or he is extended. I think that's where we are and where we stand right now. But apart from that, Marco Rossi, and I'll kind of pull up the lines here once again, has a perfect fit on this team here at second line center. Of course, Danila Yurov has been told he's going to play center. Whether they want to start him at second line or not is going to be the question. Whether they start him at third, I think is more likely. But Marco Rossi here, imagine you play him with Brock Boeser. It's a really good scenario, but it causes the Wild to be in a bit of a predicament when it comes down to the cap space. So let me know what you think about that here, about these potential moves. Of course, the Marco Rossi, do you want him to stay? I think I know that answer, but what do you think about that report from Bill Guerin, that quote he had to say? And also let me know what you think about Brock Boeser. Do you want to see him at the Minnesota Wild come back home and try and get this team the goal scoring that they need to have down the lineup to get through the second round? Let me know what you think. That's all I got in this video. You guys have been absolutely crushing it lately on the sport. Appreciate all of you guys watching here, but that's all I got in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. I'm signing out, though. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.